Today I speak to Viki Veale about challenging play in the early years. Viki Veale is well placed to tell us why challenging play is so important for a child's development. Now, Viki is a senior lecturer in early years and primary education at St Mary's University, London, and chair of TACTYC. Now, TACTYC is an organisation which promotes early childhood education and care and recognises that professional development is a continuum for all early years professionals. I also urge you to read her chapter on challenging play. Details in the description below. Viki, a very warm welcome to you on the NAPE YouTube site. Thank you very much for joining us. And you're going to talk to us about something really challenging today. Is that
Yes, thank you. Well, I thought we could have a conversation about challenging play.
I think that would be really good. And behind me, there's a book which first attracted my attention of the chapter you wrote in there, chapter 13, I believe, called Challenging Play. I'll put a link about where you can get the Play Matters. You can actually download the book as well. I think it's free. I
It
paid
is
for mine.
free.
I
Yes,
felt a
yes.
bit peeved after I found that out.
Oh, well, the print version is very lovely. So if you'd like a print version, you can buy one, but you can also download for free.
Yeah, I think you're quite correct. Let's define challenging play before we go on with the questions.
Absolutely. So challenging play might include play that we as adults could perceive as being rough and tumble, playing with weapons or playing about war, risky play where children are moving in ways or in spaces that could be dangerous, using tools or equipment in a way we fear could lead them or someone else to getting hurt. And this type of play may be schematic in that it's repeated behaviour linked to a particular fascination children are working through. So we might see that when we see children repeatedly knocking things down, breaking things, throwing things, kicking things, climbing on and jumping off furniture, or missing things together, mixing them, dismantling them. And all those are sort of linked to trajectory or transformative schema. So in settings, we might see any of those behaviours. We might see children fighting, pouncing on each other, bundling, or testing their strength and exploring their physicality, maybe even just talking about hitting and hurting each other. And that really can be very challenging for us as adults.
Well, that's true. And you've talked about the physicality, but I came across when I went into school early years as a governor, and I saw some Lego. Now, children love Lego, Duplo, all of that stuff. It's good old-fashioned stuff, but it was screwed underneath a table upside down. So children actually had to take pieces and make models upside down. Is that challenging? Would be for me.
It's challenging in a different way. It's probably more of a spatial challenge, and it's actually quite nice for children to have that opportunity to be upside down and lying on the floor and working above them on a larger scale rather than leaning forward and working on a tabletop. So it sounds like a fantastic setting that's really thought very hard. It could also be, depending on what class you were in, where you may have a child who's a bit of a fidgeter, and actually having a few little bricks that they can subtly stick the Lego underneath is a way of helping them to regulate and to stay in that space. So hopefully with an older child, if that's the case.
Yes. So now when I go in, I see children underneath tables. I know what they're doing. They're not misbehaving. They're doing something really constructive.
Oh yes, putting paper under the tables is another really great fun one. Sticking the paper underneath the desk and getting them to.
Exactly.
It's that bigger physical skill than trying to sort of work in front of you. So it's quite a developmental process. It sounds like really good practice.
You are what I call an expert in early years. Could you briefly tell us the journey you went through to focus on early years education?
Oh, well, I grew up in a very large family, so always surrounded by brothers, sisters, cousins, and their friends. And I was always drawn towards playing with and helping and supporting the younger children. Then when I was 11, my mum trained as a nursery nurse, and I became fascinated, not just with the stationery, because we do know all teachers love stationery, but with all these interesting books about child development and neurological development. And, it all seemed really interesting and really sort of sparked my thirst for academic insight. So I then trained and did my teacher education at St Mary's, where I now work, supporting other students to become qualified teachers. And right from the start, I knew I wanted to work with the youngest children. So I had a really varied and exciting career as a teacher before I moved into ITA. I worked predominantly in lower socioeconomic areas, and I actually specialised in supporting challenging behaviour.
Oh, yes, there you go. That's the link with the challenging. Interestingly, and as I've already mentioned, you've written a chapter or two, play matters and why play matters in early childhood. One on chapter 13 is called challenging play, and we've now defined that and talked about that. Are there any particular challenges that arise around this type of play in primary school settings? How can it be, if you like, stage managed?
Well, absolutely. The type of play that you were describing, it sounds like the environment's been set up really carefully to support
Yeah,
the writing and things.
that's a primary school, a teacher in me, you see. But early years, it's slightly more chaotic. Would I?
Well, organised chaos, and
Of course.
yes. And I think physical play, we often forget, can coincide with hormonal surges or periods of growth and change.
Yes.
At these times, children may not be fully aware of their capabilities, and that can be particularly challenging in a primary school as they get bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And we as adults are trying to work out when to step in and intervene, or when to step back and let them work things through themselves. We have to remember that through play, children are testing their limits, they're exploring rules, and it can be particularly hard for them when those rules and expectations change. So those jumps, those big jumps in our expectations around sitting at a desk or sitting on the carpet, or no, you don't come in and choose your activity, you come in and do this, or well, yes, you were in the playground, but now you need to be in the classroom. Those kind of transitions can be particularly hard.
Yes, yes. And obviously there's discussion about when does early years finish, and when does formal schooling sitting at desks start. And I'm glad to say that there's certainly been some discussion even at ministerial level. Have I got that right, Vicky?
Absolutely. Well, play's definitely having a moment. In addition to Play Matters, we had the Play Commission from the Play Commission with their report. We also had the Alliance for Children putting out a report on the power to play. So last year really felt like a bit of a moment when it came to play, and that recognition that play is the way that children learn. It's who they are, it's what they need to be doing. And actually, perhaps we need to look at making the schools ready for the children and not the other way around.
I love that catchphrase of play is the way. I think that's rather good. And obviously, transition from home to school is a crucial time for the child and parent, letting go, if you like. What can children do to make that process as seamless as possible? Because obviously, a parent will come in and observe what is happening, and the teacher is trying to translate that or explain. And part of that is challenging play, is it? Isn't it? And a parent may actually see that as a bit chaotic. How can that be managed?
I think the first thing to remember is Tamsin, Philippa, and Aaron and I wrote in that chapter is that
Yes.
we have to constantly be aware that behaviour is communication. When children are engaging in what we as adults perceive to be challenging play, it's us as adults who are challenged by the way they're communicating.
Yes, exactly.
Not all challenging play is violent, but it can be difficult to witness and easily misinterpreted, especially when the adults around the child are processing their own emotions and new experiences as well. So the first time a parent sees their child being aggressive towards another child can be very difficult. And as a teacher, if you're under pressure to control the class, which is a phrase I absolutely abhor,
Yeah.
but if you're feeling under pressure and you feel like when somebody walks into your room who doesn't understand early years, what they're seeing is chaos, that can put pressure on you as a teacher to want to make children conform to a certain way of behavior. But transition is a process, it's not an event, and those patterns of behavior may be
Exactly.
repeated over a prolonged period as children process their new environment and adjust to ways of being themselves and being with others within it. So that best practice, that the way that we support children transitioning to school begins with a secure understanding of child development, a commitment to forming positive relationships with each child and their family, and home visits, which seem to have
Yes.
fallen out of vogue. They can be so helpful because what you're seeing there is how a child behaves in a familiar environment. So you can then make a judgment about whether this behavior is triggered because of something that the child particularly struggles with, or particularly could be something within the environment, could be another child that there's a conflict with. But it's also about really making sure that children aren't just suddenly expected to be at school. If we go on a journey anywhere, we have the process of getting there. And that can be a very long one. It certainly took a very long time to get home from London the other day, I can tell you. But and sometimes it's a very quick one. But if the journey's too quick and we don't have time to switch between one thing and another, that's very difficult. So giving children opportunities to visit the setting beforehand and become familiar with it, giving parents the opportunity to do the same so that they know their child is safe there, so that they can begin to trust teachers and to form that relationship, so that if there ever is a concern, if behaviour does become challenging for the child, the parent or the teacher, there's a clear line of communication. But it's also important to not put too much pressure on children too soon. Reception is early years, and the pedagogy and practice should be based on the statutory framework and led by the non-statutory guidance. It's not the point at which more formal learning should be beginning. It's just a change from a nursery setting or a preschool setting, whether that's a childminder or a daycare centre, to being at school and being there all day. And that's really hard, particularly for summer-born children who may still be having naps in the afternoon. So knowing all of that information is absolutely essential if you're going to make that process as easy as possible.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, of course, school readiness is up in the press, as it normally is every September. And I think you've written about that as well, haven't you? School readiness.
Yes, Kerry Lee and I'm not sure if you can see that.
Yes, I'll put it on the link anyway, but
Quite
yes.
similar to Play Matters. It's a co-edited text with lots of different authors contributing. It's based around the areas of learning and development, the characteristics of effective learning and the principles of the EYFS. And it should really have the sort of little quotation marks around school readiness on the because what we're really doing here is
Other way around.
that phase. It isn't about children being ready for schools as schools being ready for the children, and
exactly
having those processes that you just described in place where it's a staggered start that works around the child's needs, not the need of the adult for childcare, not the need of the school to get everybody in so you can crack on with your phonics or your baseline assessment.
Sadly, yes.
It's about meeting the child where they are and adjusting expectations accordingly.
Yeah. And so therefore there is a sort of almost direct relationship between challenging play and school readiness, because for some children, they're not used to sort of challenging play. Maybe they've been in a very structured, very closed upbringing, and then they're put into school, and then suddenly they're doing all sorts of challenging stuff. So in terms of, well, what is the relationship between school readiness and challenging play, would you say, Vicky?
Absolutely. I think there's a really strong relationship. We have to remember that most commonly, it's when we see challenging play, it's because our expectations are unrealistic, because the environment isn't supporting learning and development. It hasn't been set up and curated carefully to support continuous provision.
Yeah.
And learning and develop the learning that we're expecting children to engage with is not appropriate for them. So when it's too adult led, when it's too dictated, young children aren't very good at hiding how they feel. They don't know how to do that yet. That's a skill
Well,
we
thank
learn.
goodness in a way.
Yes.
At least we know what
Well,
they're thinking. Yeah.
it's a skill we become conditioned to, but what we see when we see challenging play in schools around transitions is children going through that process of discombobulation, assimilation, and accommodation that Piaget describes. So
Yeah.
not only processing what's happening, but problem solving, developing new language and regulatory skills, and building the resilience that they need to adapt to that new environment and expectations within it. So although it may look challenging to us as adults,
Yeah.
actually absolutely crucial to allow them to use their imagination and physicality to develop the architecture of their brains as they connect those new experiences with existing knowledge and understanding. Otherwise, what we do is we're basically telling them, well, yes, up until yesterday you were doing this, and now I want you to do that. And what you were doing before is wrong. And that really threatens the child. It threatens what they understand about the way the world works. So we must give them that time to get used to new expectations and introduce those expectations at a developmentally appropriate point.
Thank you for that. Vicky, behind you, there's a logo which says TACTYC. Now, yes, and obviously you work and you're, I believe, chair of TACTYC as I speak. On that website, are there materials to help early years staff get to grips with providing opportunities for challenging play?
On the TACTYC website, you'll find the link to download School Readiness Matters, and you can, very similar to Play Matters, you can download it for free, or you can buy it as a book, as the one that I have here. But you'll also find a range of occasional papers, reflection papers that deal with a range of topics, and links to our blog series where we explore different aspects of early years pedagogy and practice. So there's a lot of resources there. There are also links to our book series where you can find more information. And I think the co-editors of this chapter 13 in Play Matters, Tamsin Grimmer, Philippa Thompson and Aaron Bradbury, have all put out excellent relationships on challenging play as well. I think Tamsin in particular has a book that I would really highly recommend for people to look at if they are experiencing challenging play within their settings.
Excellent. What I'll do is I'll insert a video of the website and sort of click on those various links to that material to give people even better idea where to go and what to look out for. Once you have arrived on the TACTYC website homepage, if you just scroll down, you will find that the supporting and informing heading will reveal occasional papers, which are these here. Produced by a variety of different contributors, some of which you might recognise the name of. And then if I go back, you will also see webinars. So March's one, for instance, if we look at this one here, is looking at high quality provision in the baby room of English nurseries. So the webinar is going to be about that, and it says achieving high quality provision in the baby room of English nurseries with Sarah Bonetti and Kayla Halls. And that's obviously has now gone. Intelligent Materials, a Language for Life. But you can find the recording for that if you look. Thank you for that. Now, have we missed anything out? Is there anything else you wanted to add about? I mean, we've talked a little tiny bit about play, but today we're talking about challenging play. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think the key message for people to really hold on to is that it's us as adults who are challenged. We're challenged because we worry a child will get hurt. We see them running around the room with a pair of scissors, and all we can think is they're going to fall over and hurt themselves. They're going to hurt someone else. Something's going to happen. A parent's then going, we're going to have to then tell everybody and explain why that situation occurred. And it's the anxiety that it builds in us that's the challenge, not the behavior itself.
Yeah.
If we can reframe challenging behavior as a form of communication, if we can focus on the benefits of risky play and use a schematic lens to help us differentiate between violence, which is not okay, and rough and tumble, that will really help us understand the relationship between challenging play and challenging situations, such as transition to school. So if we're going to be able to support that effectively, we need to really remember that school readiness shouldn't just focus on children being able to be ready to conform to our expectations. It's about us in schools being ready for them.
That's a great way to finish this video. And viewers, I hope you've enjoyed looking at this particular focus. Focus has been mentioned about challenging play. Obviously, put your comments as normal on YouTube, and don't forget to go on over to the website as well. Viki, thank you very much indeed for today. Bye for now.
Thank you.